culture is an expression of our life. Culture encompasses all the aspects of our life, whether it is economic, social, interaction with others, interaction with other societies, everything. Every aspect of our life is expressed through culture. That is why whenever there is a movement, whenever there is a political movement or a social movement, that is expressed through culture. Discrimination is questioned by culture. Injustice is questioned by the culture. So the forms of culture are the expression of our protest, our demand, and our completely encompassing our expression. So culture always plays a vital role in all the movements. If we have seen in the past, for example, when the caste movements are there, whether it is Dravidian movement or if you go back to Veera Brahmam or Vemana, everyone expresses through poetry. They express through songs, express through dance. So the cultural expression will touch somewhere here. Means it touches the heart, it touches the soul, and you will get involved into the demand. You will identify with the demand. You will identify with the people who are talking about the oppression. That is why cultural forms are very, very important in each and every moment. In the last class, we have seen how the culture is evolving from 1940s. Nizam period started with Dasharathi and cultural revivalism we are talking. And in this class, we will be talking about the changes or the new forms which are being adopted in the last phase of the Telangana movement. So cultural movement in the last phase is the topic of this class. So in this, we will be talking about the writers and organizations. Whoever is writing new, afresh for Telangana, and organizations trying to consolidate the people who are talking for Telangana. Then second aspect is rewriting of history. Why history has to be rewritten? What history has to do with culture? Then third one is performing art forms and organizations. And fourth one is other cultural interventions. So we'll talk about all these things. And before going to that in detail, let's talk about the importance of this culture of Telangana. If you look at the cultural aspect in Telangana, Telangana's cultural tradition is never stopped. If you see from ancient period or medieval period, that continuity of cultural tradition, you can see from whenever there is a new stream coming up, Telangana caught it. For example, if we are going into Kakatiya period or medieval periods, Shaivism is catching up and you have the Shaiva poetry. Palkuriki, Somana and all these people are coming up with the Shaiva poetry against the old style of poetry. And many more things are coming in this period. Then come to the next phase. Whenever there is a change, for example, in the Nizam period, you have Dasharathi and all these people. Anti-feudal struggles, you have different people under progressive literature, that is Abhyudaya Sahityam. Many people wrote against the feudalism of Nizams. If we talk about Dasharathi or Kaloji or many other people like in the anti-Nizam struggle, Vatikota Alvar Swami, or any person who is involved in the Telangana armed struggle are bringing out a poetry or writings in anti-feudal struggle, that is Telangana armed struggle. And post-Telangana armed struggle, you have different phases again. Come 1969 is the only period, it's a brief period, you don't have much of the literature coming in support of 1969 movement because the society was into turbulent phase. Very interesting thing. If we have to analyze why there is no new poetry or a big cultural movement in 1969 along with the Telangana movement. If we have to analyze, we can say 1969 movement is part of the crisis, part of the result of the crisis. There is already some other movements are going on. In Telangana society, we had huge cultural tradition and continuity from ancient times till 1969, I said. So then what was the cultural tradition in 1969? We see different groups of poetry is coming like Tiragabaddu Kavulu, March Kavulu, Digambara Kavulu, all the streams, They were talking differently with different voices, but not completely into an ideological mold. It is still a shaping up phase. Digambara Kaulu questioned everything in the society. They used all the examples, they used all the words which we think it is not suitable to utter also. They were expressing their anguish, anger against the society with such a powerful words. Charabandaraju, Nagnamuni, Bhairavaya, Nikleshwar, Jwalamukhi, these 5 people were the Digambara Kaulu. Then Tiragabud Kaulu, another group started to, the name itself is indication. Tiragabud Kaulu means they are rebels. They are rebels. Tiragabud Kaulu. They are revolting against what? Against the existing order. Then March Kaulu, Jhanja, and many booklets came. And all these things have shaped up a new stream of poetry which is known as revolutionary poetry, ultimately culminated into Revolutionary Writers Association, Viplava Rachayitala Sangam, from progressive to revolution. This is the tradition we have changed. And Telangana is not untouched with all these things. All the important poets of Digambara Kavitvam are from Telangana. And you can see revolutionary literature inspired by Naxalbari. Many people represented the revolutionary stream from Telangana. Varavar Rao, Charabandaraju, Nikleshwar, Jwalamukhi. Nikleshwar, Jwalamukhi, Charabandaraju, those who were Digambara Kaulu came into this movement and they became revolutionary writers. Varavar Rao from Tiragabadu Kaulu came into this movement, as we have seen in the last class. Many people are coming into the revolutionary stream during this period. So this is another stream. Then next, post-globalization, we have some new streams. That is, identity movements are there. Identity movements means the caste identity movements and a tribe or Dalit movements. All these movements have the women's movement, gender question, and you have feminist movement, you have feminist writings, you have women poetry, you have minority poetry. So, lot of new streams have come up in Telangana. We have seen the vibrancy in Telangana's literature in the entire period. So, Telangana is never untouched with the things happening outside the world in the realms or the sphere of literature or culture. We have started many new forms and streams which became important, which became role model for the entire country also. Like Charabandaraju's songs were translated into many other languages and they are sung by the revolutionary poetry, revolutionary movements. Subbarao Panigrahi, of course, is from Srikakulam, but revolutionary poetry has been translated into other things. Dalit movements literature is coming into Telangana. Dalit Panther poetry translated into Telangana. So there is a vibrancy in the Telangana literature and culture every time. So with all this background, I say Telangana is always vibrant in terms of culture, literature. So what is happening? Come the last phase of the movement. We have seen who is the beginner. Kaloji is the central theme or central person around whom everything is revolving. Kaloji Foundation or Natyakala Press movement, we have talked about the beginnings of the beginnings of the last phase. So Kaloji was there, and Jayashankar, Kaloji, Natyakala Press, so professors, intellectuals. So automatically, if the people who are involved in the movement in the beginning means, if they are intellectuals, it is nothing but culture. So our manifestation of the last movement began with culture. Before coming onto the streets, in the name of Sagaraharam or Vantavarpu or Patta Palle Palle Rodla Mediki, Palle Palle Pattala Mediki, whatever the form is, we have talked about the cultural things, and many cultural artists, many literary personalities wrote about the injustice meted out to Telangana. So thus, the last phase has its beginnings in the cultural protest, in the cultural expression. So, when you understood that there is injustice, when you express in culture, so automatically we organize ourselves into cultural organizations. And this is nothing but the assertion. This assertion of culture, assertion of Telangana in culture will give you an ideological strength to the movement and inspiration for the masses. Ideological strength means what? For example, all this is introduction for these things. In your descriptive answers, you have to write such sentences and role of culture in raising the consciousness, how it inspires the masses, how the ideological strength is gained from the culture. All these points you have to express. Then you can list empty number of examples. Just giving examples will not give you the descriptive answer, remember. So, in your descriptive answer, your first paragraph or first portion should carry the essence of culture and importance of culture in bringing out the movement to a higher stage. Ideological strength of movement I talked about. What do you mean by ideological strength of the movement? Take the last phase of the movement. Whenever there is a debate in the TVs, why Telangana is needed, why the creation of Telangana, a new state, is important. There are hundreds of people who can talk about it. And there is very few people, that too with illogical arguments, saying that we should be united. There is no poetry coming up for Samaikandra in the entire movement. And you have thousands of poems, hundreds of books published in favor of Telangana creation. Not even a single booklet came in support of, not even a single poetry book came in support of Samaikandra. Because the emptiness in the argument of United Andhra Pradesh, there is no ideological strength in that argument. Except one song by Ghazal Srinivas, as I have already told. Why should we together? Why should not be together? Why should we together? That is, Enduku kalisi undali, manam enduku kalisi pundali. This is the song. And he is saying all illogical things because river flows to this and everything. So we should be united. So illogical things cannot give you the ideological strength for the movement or any protest form. So Telangana has the strength in its ideology, in its protest, because culture has evolved to that extent. So next one is inspiring the masses. How any culture inspires the masses? For example, a song will create ripples and then waves, then tremors, then completely shakes up the society. Ripples means smaller things, then waves, then it creates tremors, the society shivers, then completely earth-shaking things. For example, you take any Dhoomdam or any song by Jananatya Mandali or Gaddar or Goreti Venkana, every song receives applause, every song receives rousing reception, and you will get goosebumps if you listen to such songs. So we can think that culture will make something inside. When it touches the soul, you are convinced with it, you are going with it. That is how it inspires the masses. Not only songs, poetry also inspired. At times when revolution was the trend, or early progressive to revolutionary literature, Sri Sri's poetry was completely sung. Sri Sri's poetry was recited. వస్తున్నాయి జగన్నాథ రథచక్రాలు, భూమార్గం పట్టిస్తాను, భూకంపం పుట్టిస్తాను. Just these words used to get goosebumps in the youth in revolutionary literature. Then comes Telangana movement. You have poetry also. Kaloji's poetry, though it is not like marching, but those are becoming the quotations in the next phase of movement. పొరుగువాడు మోసం చేస్తే పొలిమేర దాకా తరుముతాను, మనవాడే మోసం చేస్తే ikkade paati pedtanu. This is a poetry of Kaloji. When Kaloji says this is quoted, oft quoted in the meetings, and people circulate this quotation. Na Telangana koti ratanala veena. That's it. You do not tell anything about your greatness. Just a few words, a quotation of Dasharati. Na Telangana koti ratanala veena. That's enough. So like that, poetry. Then comes films. They express. They will show you the reality. Jai Bolo Telangana has depicted the entire last phase. Like that, culture has an importance in rousing the masses, in rousing the what you call feelings and assertion and identification with the masses. So we will be discussing threadbare about all these things in this. Attempts of some writers and intellectuals and cultural activists to organize Telangana society with the help of culture is the topic of this day. So, when we talk about the writers, we have discussed about writers in the last class. From Dasharati onwards, different shades of writers are coming in support of Telangana. And today we are talking about the beginnings of new type of organizations and new groupings in the last phase of our movement. So, Forum for Freedom of Expression we discussed in earlier topics. That is in memory of Ghulam Rasool, who was killed in a fake encounter. The journalists under the leadership of Yadagiri used to organize the meeting every year. And in that meeting, the intellectual section, activists, political people, all these people gathered, and that has created some sense of unity. Again, that led to Bhuvanagiri Sabha. This is also we have discussed. One song in that is Amma Telanganama Akali Kekala Ganama by Gaddar is a cut from the all others. Amma Telanganama Akali Kekala Ganama, the first line itself will express, before we have brought out Telangana Talli as a statue, Amma Telanganama, the expression he has taken as mother, oh mother, Telangana mother, and you are hungry. You are a song of hunger. That's what he is saying. Even hunger can be expressed in a poetic way which appeals. Amma Telanganama Akali Kekala Ganama, and again everything is completely new now. From now onwards, poetry, songs are coming in support of Telangana movement. This is happening in the last phase of the 1997-1998 period. So, in 1997 November, after the January meeting, again there was Bhuvanagiri Sabha, and in Bhuvanagiri Sabha we have seen the cultural organizations which we have talked already. That is in Gollakurma Doludebba, Belli Lalita and her artists were performing at Bhuvanagiri Sabha. Then in November 1997, a group of intellectuals, writers, thought of organizing writers for Telangana. So, Telangana Sanskritika Sannahaka Committee was started. Telangana Sanskritika Sannahaka Committee. Sannahaka Committee means preparatory committee. Telangana Cultural Preparatory Committee. They have organized a meeting at Fateh Maidan Club in Hyderabad, November 1997, and almost 60 people came together in that meeting. Famous people who and who of Telangana today, like Nandini Siddhareddy. Nandini Siddhareddy, don't write Siddhareddy, he writes his name as Nandini Siddhareddy. In many of the sites, many of the writings, all the people write Siddhareddy. It is not Siddhareddy, his official name. He writes his name as Nandini Siddhareddy. Nandini Siddhareddy, now the chairman of Official Language Commission. Then K. Srinivas, editor Andhra Jyoti. Ambati Surendra Raju, a senior journalist, writer, literary critic, and a famous film critic. Then Sunkireddy Narayan Reddy, a literary personality, Telugu lecturer, and wrote history books and literature books of Telangana. Aniseti Rajita, a poet. Jukanti Jagannatham, poet. Deshapati Srinivas, a poet, and presently OSD to KCR. Jagan Reddy, Samedi Jagan Reddy, a student who rose from the revolutionary background from Telangana movement, early 1990s, from revolutionary background, revolutionary student organization background to Telangana background, Samedi Jagan Reddy. All these people were writing in favor of Telangana in the beginning. So these people came together under this banner of Telangana Sanskritika Sannahaka Committee, and they organized 4 meetings. In those 4 meetings, the first meeting was attended by Professor Yashoda Reddy, Dasharathi Rangacharya. Remember, not Dasharathi Krishnamacharya, Dasharathi Rangacharya. Dasharathi Rangacharya is the brother of Dasharathi Krishnamacharya. He is also a writer. Dasharathi Rangacharya, who wrote Chillara Devullu, who is a Sanskrit scholar, who wrote about Telangana life in his novels. Extensively he has written. Dasharathi Rangacharya, remember this name. His work is Chillara Devullu. You can see on the screen the title of the cover of the book. Chillara Devullu is a novel. So, Dasharathi Rangacharya and Professor Yashoda Reddy were the chief guests. And this Telangana Sanskritika Sannahaka Committee organized meetings continuously for 4 times. They organized 4 meetings in a series, which inspired many new writings in Telangana. So, with the inspiration of new phase of Telangana movement and a new grouping, and everywhere there is a talk that we have to write for Telangana. In this background, there are books, some books which are very, very important, which you may get in the examination. In objective type, definitely some of the books they will be asking, who is the author of this book? Match the following, they will be giving 4 books this side and 4 authors. Matching is important. One of the book, like very interesting titles you can see, Itihasam Ma Chetilo Kukkapilla. Itihasam means Charitra, E means history. History is a puppy in our hands. Itihasam Ma Chetilo Kukkapilla by Samidi Jagan Reddy. Varji, a book, a poetry anthology by M. Venkat. Annavaram Devendra, another important poet rising in this period. His titles, Tovva, Nadaka, Marokonam, all these are the essays. Marokonam is a essays. Tovva and Nadaka poetry. Padavu, Vaddeboyina Srinivas. Dali, Sunkireddy Narayan Reddy. And long poems of Yaqub. Yaqub, a student of Usmania University Telugu department, rose in terms of poetry, and he was applauded by people like Chekuri Ramarao, who is a great critique of literature and language. He once in one of his columns he said, Kyaqub, Yaqub. And Yaqub wrote long poems. And all these things are the new poems coming in this period. So, what is happening with this Telangana Sanskritika Sannahaka Vedika? Telangana Sanskritika Sannahaka Vedika was organizing the meetings, and definitely people are coming. And remember, it is not like any cultural organization cannot be compared with the organizations like any political organization. Every intellectual, every writer is an individual, and everyone has their opinion strongly. There is no cadre, no leader. Everyone is expressing. So, it's highly impossible to make the arguments convincing for, if I have some argument, I can't convince the argument with the other. So, I am on my own. So, it's highly impossible to organize like any other political organizations. For cultural organizations, we have to remember, because it deals with the intellect. Intellect is nothing but the opinions, different forms, different opinions we'll be having. So, though they were meeting 4 times, there is internal debate. Like one stream says, means among the people who are active in this Telangana Sannaha committee, one stream says we should be inside the limits of constitution, and our poetry and our movement should be concise, limited to this. And other stream says constitution need not be our limitation. We will talk about state terror, we will talk about repression, we will talk about the revolution, we will talk about ML politics along with Telangana. So, there is a difference of opinion. Which is right, which is wrong is left to the people, left to the masses, left to the literary personalities. Because some people see Telangana inside the whole revolution, and some people see Telangana outside revolution. First Telangana should happen and revolution is a different one. So, different perceptions, different ideologies. So, in this background, Telangana Preparatory Committee, that cultural preparatory committee could not come out as a single organization. So, some people were having the other opinion. So, finally, out of this, a group which is saying that we should be in the limits of constitution, and Telangana should be the only aim for our writers, because Telangana is the only urgent demand. They have formed a new organization which is known as Telangana Rachayitala Vedika. And Telangana Rachayitala Vedika was formed in 2001, and its founder president Nandini Siddhareddy, K. Srinivas, all other activists like K. Srinivas, Jukanti Jagannatham, Juluri Gauri Shankar, all these people, those who have created poetry or published books in the latter period, were there in this Telangana Rachayitala Vedika, which is formed in 2001. So, this Terave or Telangana Rachayitala Vedika functioning from then 2001 till date with Telangana as the main agenda. Especially during the last phase of the movement, they have brought out many booklets. Individuals have brought out the many booklets. Every year they organize their conferences. And it is not just state organization. they have organized All India Telangana Rachayitala Vedika, because there are people who are outside Telangana too. If you just say Telangana Rachayitala Vedika, geographically we will be confined to Telangana. But if you go to some other parts, for example, if you go to Maharashtra or Bombay, you have many people who are writing for Telangana. Workers who are going to Bombay from North Telangana, settling there, they are also writing poetry and they should be covered. So Telangana, Akhila Bharata Telangana Rachayitala Vedika was formed. And this Telangana Rachayitala Vedika performed its function, duty to Telangana by bringing out huge number of booklets, essays and articles. So, this is about Telangana Rachayitala Vedika. So, to conclude, now what we have to say is, this formation of Telangana Rachayitala Vedika is one point in our history where Telangana Kosame Telangana Rachayitalu, means Telangana Rachayitalu are writers for Telangana. The special organization, a separate organization, exclusive organization for Telangana writers is formed. Apart from this, there are many cultural forms are there. They are expressing Telangana's anguish. They are expressing the demand. But they are not completely exclusively for Telangana. So, we see a separate organization for Telangana, that is Telangana Rachayitala Vedika. In the latter period also, this Telangana Rachayitala Vedika continued, and 2014, post 2014, we had different people. Every year they will be having their annual conferences. Jaidir Tirumal Rao was the person who was leading in the last phase. So, this is the first part of our new phase of cultural movement we are talking about. In the next part, we will be discussing about the happenings in other forms plus in literature too.